Welcome to the new episode of our gigantic practicing guide. Today we want to talk about the first section of your practicing structure, which is dedicated to warm-up and sight reading. I will provide you with a pre-practice checklist, which will be very useful also for the times before your performance. Aside from my students, I have many other children. Yes, I consider my students as my children. If they're older, or like if they're older than me, or it's our ages are very close, I consider them as my friends. This creature, whose twin actually lives with one of my best friends, is a gift from the same best friend. His name is Mushroom. He's my child, and he will accompany us through today in our video. You can say hello to Mushroom. Okay, so let's start with one of the very important steps before you start practicing. And as a parent, I tend to get very overwhelmed before I practice or before I have a very big project. Are you the type of person that always complains that they don't have enough concentration, or people actually tell you that you don't have concentration, or many of you, the very routine kind of phrase, many of you ask me that about how you should increase your concentration. No, I'm not a very concentrated person. I'm all over the place. I'm doing everything at the same time. You know, my life is a lot. I have my students. At the same time, I'm majoring in performance, which I have to practice piano for. I have recitals, college works coming up, especially with the pandemic. They actually increased the assignments instead of having in-class activities, right? At the same time, I'm doing other projects with my friends here, there. You know, it's a lot of work, and sometimes it's very difficult to concentrate. We have different strategies to increase our concentration on the task. This one that I'm mentioning is more of a mental and lifestyle way or method rather than a musical task. This very beautiful task is called meditation. You know, you warm up your body, you warm up your muscles before you start to exercise or start to practice any instrument. At the same time, you also want to prepare and warm up your mind. Well, you obviously cannot go to your practicing session with a lot of things going on in your mind at the same time. Even though if you go, then you cannot concentrate on the material, you know? Okay, so I was very resistant toward doing this task. Many of my colleagues, my professor, my friends actually suggested me to do meditate, and I was very resistant just because I didn't want to limit myself to the yoga world. I like yoga, I like doing yoga, but at the same time I thought that if I want to do meditation, I should follow the principles of yoga or Buddhism. But I started to meditate just in the beginning of COVID, which was supposed to be one of the worst times for my mental health. At the time, I was not in a good mood, and then I was very excited for the things that was going to happen. Before that, in the previous semester, I didn't have a good experience, so I was just very hopeful towards the thing that was coming up if the COVID was not there. But then after that, we just find out that we have to quarantine. We just have to sit in one place and also concentrate on our life and task, because the school is going, you know, it's just going on, and then you have to follow, you have to do your assignment at the same time. It's just a lot of things. Okay, so I learned this from a video on YouTube in which a Dada or a yogi was actually explaining the process of a very basic meditation. I will attach the video below. The very simplest way of doing meditation is to just try to focus on your breathing. What happens is you actually sit still in a very relaxed position, but at the same time trying to keep your spine and your bones very up, very straight up. You start to breathe and trying to become aware of your exhale and inhale. Okay, I'm gonna put the mushroom here as an observant. There are different principles in which the meditation can help you with. The first one is to be able to empty your mind, take control on your mind by purpose. Because it's very difficult. At the same time, you have lots of thoughts going on. You cannot stop them. It's very difficult, I bet. He didn't stand still, so we're gonna hug him again. The second one is to be happier. The third one is awareness of the moment. When you begin to meditate and focus on your breath, you are focusing on something that is happening at the current moment. No future, no past. There are very simplest things that we tend to ignore in our very routine lifestyle. The practice of meditation can help us to bring concentration on one task at any time that we desire. Well, remember in our last video, we talked about the overall structure of our practicing, the chunks that we are dedicating to each thing. and the pieces, right? In this video, we want to include the warm-up and sight reading. So first, the first step before you start to practice could be a little bit of meditation. You want to empty your mind and make it ready. We tend to skip our warm-up and sight reading time a lot. I personally did it, and I still do sometimes. But the sight reading, I personally cannot skip because even if I don't practice it, if I don't dedicate a practicing time to sight read, I'm still constantly doing it for my students, so I cannot run away from it. Even if you're skipping your sight reading time, try not to skip your warm-up time. And here's the reason why. You can refer to my muscle tension video, but when we are playing any instrument, a lot of muscles, a lot of movements, and all these joints and all these tendons and all these things are actually involved. So if your muscles are not warmed up and stretched enough, and you start to do a very big movement or a very difficult movement, first you're in the risk of using wrong muscle groups, which can actually increase the tension in your hands and then lead to harming your hands just because of those movements. Second, you're technically risking your muscles towards the injuries that are mostly chronic, sometimes very acute. It can lead to very bad situations such as even numbness of the hands, numbness of the fingers. So here is a brief guide to our warm-up session. Our warm-up session consists of 2 parts. The first part would be stretching, which we do for like 5 to 6 minutes. Then we have our kinetic exercises for 15 to 20 minutes. These two both work well with each other. If you include both of them in your practicing session, it's really good. Stretches can be done with or without instrument, and obviously if you combine these two together, it's even better. Before we continue, remember that all of these practices and exercises that I'm suggesting are only suggestions. You don't have to do all of them every day in your every practicing session, right? They're just suggestions. You can choose from those. You can find your own practicing on internet, on many resources. I'm not going to stand because I don't think I will fit in the camera and I don't want to move the camera. Okay, the first one will be our arm circle. And this actually allows you to prepare your shoulders, your arms, and your forearms to be flexible. Talking about neck. Neck is a very important part of our body that we use it a lot, but we tend to not really take it serious, especially for the vocalist, well, instrumentalists as well, but especially for the vocalist. Vocalists actually use a lot of these necks, and it's very crucial in the way you actually project the sound. This is a very good exercise. I believe it's based on a yoga movement. So very easy and very relaxed. You lean your head to the right or left, to your side, any side, and gently pull it with your hand from the same side. Very easy, not really pushing so hard, just gently, right? And then start to run your fingers here. All of this tension, you may notice that there is a lot of tension going on in your necks. And obviously very usual neck exercises, but be careful. You have to do it very slow, right? You don't want any sudden movement for your muscles. The other one is our shoulder, right? Especially if you're a pianist, you are doing a lot of movements with your shoulder and your the larger parts of your body, right? So this is another movement you can do. These are very routine exercises we tend to do before workouts even. You may have done it when you were like a child or so. Getting into smaller muscles on our hands. The first one, we want to stretch our forearms technically with using our wrists. You take your hands like this. Don't bend your fingers towards the back. Just straight, right? And push it as much as you can, but very gently pushing back and back and back and back. Next, you want to do the same thing, but you want to bend your fingers back. So somehow like this. Pushing as hard as you can, and it stretch your palm here. The other exercise you can do is to very easily close your hands and push it as much as you can, and then open it up. Close it, and do the same thing, right? Repeat. What happens, it actually helps you to control your power in your palms. Also, there's another exercise, opening and closing from your phalange or phalanx. The first joints, technically. Or the second. If you'd like, it's also very helpful to stretch your lower body. It can actually help your back to be a little bit eased and relaxed, especially if you're sitting for a long time behind your instrument. Okay, next we want to mention the warm-up and stretching with instrument.
So this finger substitution exercise is a very good one to stretch your entire hand, particularly your thumb and second finger, and to make your hands flexible. One thing to be cautious though is that you should not do the exercise for a long time because you don't want to keep your hands stretched long enough that it exhausts your tendons. You also want to do the movements very patiently and without rushing because immediate extreme movements can also hurt your hands. Very patiently hold your thumb on the bass note, play the top note with the chosen finger, and patiently substitute that with the adjacent finger without holding up your thumb. This one you can do in different keys. I personally base it on C, but the movements and stretch feel totally different in different keys if you follow the same fingering. This one stretches in between all of your fingers. Remember the previous one focused on your thumb and index, whereas this one can stretch all of your fingers. Again, these are meant to be done legato and slow. Otherwise, even if not hurting your hands, it won't serve the purpose of stretching your hands enough. Another one to stretch all of your fingers is this chord exercise. We follow the same fingering every time for the same chord, but in different inversions. So we always have our 5-4-3-2 fingering, but playing our chord in root position, then first inversion, and then second inversion. Obviously, these can be done on any chord, and each chord feels different. Again, I cannot stress this enough. You must be cautious not to hurt your hands with these exercises. Don't do them for long duration or many times in a day. Your hands will tell you when to stop. Don't overuse them.
After you're done with stretching, you want to go to your kinetic exercises. In your kinetic exercises, the three main very easy things you can include is either scale, arpeggio, octave, and also trills, right? If you have a new octave or scale to learn, then include that. If you don't have a new thing to learn, pick one of the techniques and do it in 12 key, or just one key and do it in different techniques. Like for example, take C major and then do trills, do arpeggios and octaves and scales, right? Or just do, like for example, scales in 12 keys. Briefly talking about sight reading part, you can do sight reading either with instrument or without instrument. What happens with the instrumental sight reading practice is you just pick a piece, any piece, like choose a piece. You just start and try not to stop, and you get it as best as you can, but it doesn't matter you don't get a note right and it's not perfect, it's fine. You just have to keep going, right? And it's basically reading and playing at the same time. To practice sight reading with the instrument, I suggest you to use an etude book, something that is a little bit below your current level, like 2 to 3 levels below. For example, Charity 599 actually works if you're in an advanced level. One of the reasons why is during each exercise in the etude book, one pattern is technically repeated over and over again, which is easier for sight reading, but at the same time you're learning a new technique, because sight reading is about experience. The more you actually know different patterns, the better you can do sight reading. If you want to sight read the things that have multiple techniques and multiple things going on, you can pick collections. For example, Tchaikovsky, Schumann collections. There are a lot of collections you can pick. If you're in an intermediate or beginner level, you can go to very simple Bayer exercises or John Thompson. Another thing you can do with an etude is to transpose it. Pick a very simple exercise and try to transpose it half step up or down. Thank you for watching me and watching this episode about warm-up and sight reading. Follow my next video, wait for my next video. We will talk more about our practicing structure. If you like this video, feel free to share it with other people who may need it. And if you have any questions, just comment on this video or message me.